Pamia miru simipinis, miru sim susu, migo wat or sem mangi. Amigo wat ikamatem papa bromina. Miru kimwe praman. Miru kimla mino guru gustret, mi pret no guturu. Nami wokro krai.
We bear name Kanja Nanjo, you walk a paluiba. Naming Bapera and Pierre Ruba Legon. Name Seraka, I am the Kennedy Karawiba, in that you walk a paluiba. Name Seraka. If you have a man, we are at the Pierre in Beminiamo of Nemo Bar and Yaman. Oh, name Seraka. Seraka Habor. Oh, pay the Mabaraman, Rubayam of Magabar, oh, Mira, me Pierre Babiano. Ba one boy and a Harapiarubi.
Well, we never kill people to go and look for gold, or we never kill them because they tried to stop us from looking for gold. We only kill. The only reason that we kill people was simply if we hadn't killed them, they would have killed us. All that.
Grand uprising, free people. Grand uprising, free people. This is first contact over there in Australia, Highland, Papua New Guinea. And notice the timeline. This is in the 1930s. First contact. Our first contact was in 1492. And because in 1492 there was no machinery or equipment to record the encounters of Columbus and Cortez. But in this specific encounter, it's documented, and this is first-hand knowledge. And this is how a species of people move across the earth. This very same way.
That guy, all the people that were with it, the girl had nothing to do with it.
New Guinea was one of the last places on Earth to be colonized by Europeans. In the 19...
Remember I show the Earth view, where it's this side, over here. I remember, we can look at India. We're looking at Australia from where I'm sitting. If we move to the left, we can see India over there. And New Guinea is above Australia. And if you move a little more to the left, that's where you'll encounter the European and the Africans. One landmass over that side.
In the 1920s, the Australians occupied only the coastal fringe of this huge island lying just to their north. Of the interior, nothing was known. No European had ever been there. Australia, the occupying colonial power, saw its role as bringing civilization to New Guinea. Along the coast, missionaries busied themselves saving souls, while the plantation owners put them to work. It was cheap labor. But by the mid-1920s, New Guinea was hard hit by low world prices for its few products. There seemed little to attract the white man. And then, in 1926, gold was discovered a mere 40 miles inland. Hundreds of Australians came up to New Guinea in search of the quick fortune.
The great day has arrived. Dredge number 1 is completed and ready for work. The official opening is an occasion for celebration and festivities. The floating monster's arrival from civilization thrills the Kanaka as much as the white man, and he throws himself into his task with zest. You will understand how the native has benefited by these activities. A long time will elapse before he shakes off the shackles of barbarism, but his contact with the environment of the white man must inevitably hasten his progress along the path that leads to civilization.
Within a few years, the small time miners had worked out their claims, or saw them bought out by the big dredging companies. Most of these men drifted back to Australia and the dull queues of the Depression. A few stayed on, convinced that somewhere else in New Guinea there was more gold to be found. Among them were 3 brothers, Michael, Daniel, and James Leahy. The eldest and acknowledged leader was Michael Leahy, who died in 1978. He is survived by his brothers Daniel and James.
When I went to New Guinea, I was young and I suppose pretty thick in the skull to go there in the first place with malaria and all kinds of things. But anyhow, when I got there, I went there and I didn't think I was going to stay there very long because I didn't like it. I got the fever and I didn't like climbing mountains and wasn't particularly mad about the people. But anyhow, I stayed there. And when I stayed there for the benefit of James Leahy. And I didn't do badly for him. But I stayed there for 50 years.
When the gold rush broke out in New Guinea and Mick left Australia to come to the gold rush, I had just left school and was there. It was in the middle of the Depression, and I had got a job up in North Queensland working on a dairy farm. Well, my only thoughts from then, after I'd learned that Mick had gone and the gold rush, was to get to New Guinea and be doing the same things as Mick was doing. A lot of people say that Mick had the gold fever. Well, we all had it. So you can imagine what terrific excitement it was that I was at last almost on my way to the promised land.
He's on his way to the promised land. There is so many promised land. I can just imagine Columbus and Cortez saying the very same thing. They're on their way to the promised land, and they don't care nothing about who these people that they come and see. They care zero about these people.
Spurred on by dreams of another great gold strike, Michael Leahy turned to prospecting. The obvious place to look for new gold was the interior, where no European had ever been before. In 1930, the interior of New Guinea was one of the last great unexplored regions then left on the face of the earth.
Just like Jamaica.
Rising up in the center of the island was a great mountain range, so sheer and rugged it was thought to be uninhabited. But unknown to the outside world, within these mountains were huge and fertile valleys, and in these valleys lived 1 million people. Michael Leahy and his companions were the first white men to enter this hidden world and meet its people.
Look at the complexion of the people, even though it's black and white image. These people are so dark that they're shining. You know what I mean? And then it's a different crossbreed that exists now. But pay attention.
Leahy was looking for gold, but he took a camera with him, and so a record of this historic encounter was captured on film. The year was 1930.
Mr. Masamek, we have Praman through. One Praman in Afghanistan, kani barapi muka katenno. Ino kani paiti muka pramani mi hat pramani true. Na mi kama bro fresh bro yumi na mi. Bi pramani bro yumi ya na mi putin tiga yan. Macam mek irai. Kamiya. Nani bro mek irai.
Mick was always the leader of our party. He always went in the lead. He was a born prospector, I think. You know, he was a very, very good organizer, and he got very well with all the native people. The carriers all looked up to Mick as the leader. But he was very kind, but he was very hard at the same time.
Mick was always confident we would find the El Dorado before we had finished our travels.
As long as there's a creek further up the valley that no one else has had a look at, that's a good enough driving force for anyone. But it was very, very hard. When you're right out in the centre, there was no way of getting back, only the way you came. For about 90 miles, we had to walk to get to the place where we decided to cross the ranges. Well, then we had to climb up to 9, 10, 11,000 feet. The reward in the end was when we looked out into the valleys below, it looked like a big parkland. First, it was quite obvious that there was a huge population because of the huge garden patches.
Interesting.
For several years, the Leahs searched the highland valleys for commercial quantities of gold. They were unsuccessful. They began using aeroplanes on their prospecting expeditions, flying out over unknown country to survey the land before venturing in by foot. It was on one such flight that the Leah brothers first looked down on the Wadi, the biggest valley of them all. Soon after their flight, the Leahs walked into this valley, and here at last they discovered gold. They set up their final base camp, surrounded by 250,000 more people whose existence had not even been suspected by the outside world.
There were not so many around the first day, but the next day there was a big crowd arrived. They were all in one long line, and they come in with the food and sugar cane and stuff like that, and to show that they were friendly and they wanted to trade with us. But I think they did think that we were something a bit more than ordinary human beings.
Virginia look like a maroon emperor, eh?
It wasn't very long before we had more food than we ever could hope to use. And they were bringing more and more. You couldn't stop them because they just went wild after the trade. The beads we had and the shell and the axes.
Notice the mother said the child with an axe, and the mother just got take the axe from the child. Typical. And listen to these foreigners. They're saying the people went wild for the beads, trinkets that they have to trade. Very interesting.
I think out of all the people on our trips, the Hagen people were the easiest and the best of the lot for us to deal with. The big men would come forward and they'd address us. I forget now, and I don't think we had we didn't. We had no interpreters then. But they used to stand up there and give speeches as though we knew every word that they were saying. We'd try to explain to the people that we didn't want to steal their ground. We just wanted to straighten it out for this big bird to land. Of course, you couldn't talk to them, but you'd have to explain as best we could with sign language, and they helped us. And we used to give them shell and beads and things like that for coming. But I really enjoyed it because...
For the aid for these native Papua New Guineans gave to these foreigners, the foreigner gave them shells and beads, trinkets. And look at the amount of food they get. And I'm quite sure you go to Papua New Guinea now. These civilized people are much worse than they was before. I guarantee it. And if there's any goals anywhere in that location, there's foreigners there. Yeah, man, and I guarantee whatever government structure is there is foreign to these people. It's the same thing that has been perpetrated here, the takeover there.
They'd sing and dance around. They didn't mind the stamping of the ground to pack it up after we had filled in the drains they had around their gardens. They loved the opportunity to have a big singing around. And you'd have hundreds of them around singing all the time.
They tell the natives a few days before that, on their hands, that so many days that the barloos had come. They didn't know what a barloos was. A barloos was a bird, you see. Well, they said that this bird had come and he'd come out of the air and it would make a noise. They'd make a noise like the plane. I think the thing that sucked the most of all was the fact that we could sort of tell them that we'll sleep 2 or 3 nights and out of the air will come this bird and it'll fall down here and it'll bring all these things and out of its belly someone will get out.
na barusikam na urito kirau tu bai burukuna or get something by put down mi prakisini or papa mama bromi or story or sen na mata meki to emi makim rohani or sen barusi bai kam or sen na urito ni tu or sen mo bai kirau ti burukuna something by ikam down or get kana kama buna walk.
I remember the day the first plane arrived on the Wagi Strip. I had a good pair of binoculars and I was watching for the airplane and I picked it up about 20 minutes before it landed. And I said, well, here it comes. They were more or less terrified, didn't know what it was.
Ori kita man neri ori pasi ori crying no true. Ori talk about the tebe you will finish true. Na mata meki go now fighting bros. Na fighting singing bro ori talk inoga teni brigin kakolo inoga.
The pilot, Kabansky, was a very tall man, about 6'1" or 2, and he had a flying suit and a white helmet with these fat goggles, and he got out of the plane. Then he opened the door and Kingfish and geologists, he got out of the inside of the plane. There must have been
3,000 natives lined up along the airstrip. And they were absolutely amazed, the people, and just looked up with wonderment. They didn't know what next was going to happen.
Give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. Basic preview of First Contact being cataloged. I don't know if YouTube are gonna flag this thing. Usually they should or would. But it's typical. How can we all be the same when we are look upon information such as this? And it's no different than what happened here in what they call New World or original area, which is old to us. The foreigners call it their New World. So when Columbus and Cortez and the Moors of Spain came here, it's no different. Probably it's much worse than, what you have seen documented. Because you notice them not document no type of hostility, no type of violence yet. One of the native here said these foreigners thought their leader was going to attack and shoot him. And then here these foreigners say, we are not there to kill people. Why are you there in the first place? However, step by step, gratitude for the time, for the moment.